Let me ask you something you rarely admit, even to yourself. Have you ever noticed how the harder you push, the heavier life becomes? The feeling that you are forever wrestling unseen forces, that your plans slip through your hands despite your best intentions? Perhaps you believe, as most men do, that perseverance means clinging until your knuckles turn white. But here is the revelation that changed the trajectory of my own career and countless others. Control is not the secret. Letting go is. When you release the need to dictate every detail, when you stop demanding that the world conform to your every wish, an unexpected order emerges. Solutions you once chased appear without strain. People you thought lost forever return in new forms. What once seemed impossible becomes inevitable. You have been told that surrender is defeat, but I tell you, it is the threshold of real power. Everything you desire may depend on your willingness to let go of what you think you must have. This is your invitation to discover the freedom, clarity, and abundance that come only when you finally loosen your grip. Are you ready to begin? The weight you carry is invisible until you drop it. There is a weight you carry, though it has no shape, no name, no edges to trace. Still, you feel its presence day after day, season after season. It follows you in silent rooms, pressing down with invisible hands, tightening your breath, clouding your vision, and whispering 1,000 lies that no one else can hear. This burden does not announce itself, but it commands you all the same. It tells you to grip harder, to hold together what is coming undone, to patch every leak in the boat, even when you are not the one who made the holes. It tricks you into fighting battles that were never yours to fight. You hold on, even as your hands bleed, convinced it is your duty. You confuse this burden for love, for loyalty, for identity, but it is none of these things. It is the illusion of control, and it is quietly breaking you. From the start, we are taught that control is strength, that if we just think faster, move quicker, squeeze tighter, we can bend the world to our will. But the tighter you grip, the more you become a prisoner of your own tension. The more you try to force the river, the more it escapes your grasp. In trying to master chaos, you become mastered by it. Ask yourself, honestly, what would happen if you stopped gripping? Not because you have failed, but because you have finally understood. Real strength is not in the holding, but in the letting go. Letting go is not an act of surrender. It is not a defeat. It is, in fact, the highest act of power. For when you release your need to be right, to be approved, to control every outcome, you break the chains that emotion has locked around you. You free yourself from being a prisoner of outcomes. You return to the only place where strength can be found, the present moment. Letting go does not mean you drift through life, uncaring or passive. On the contrary, it is a radical act of clarity. When you let go, you begin to see what actually matters and what never did. Your questions change. You no longer ask, how do I win? But is this even worth my peace? You stop asking, how can I make them stay? And instead, why am I measuring my worth by those already walking away? You begin to move with lightness, not because life has grown easier, but because you are no longer carrying the weight of everything you cannot control. You no longer need to fix every misunderstanding, or force people to see your worth, or exhaust yourself trying to prove what should be evident to those who matter. You let go of the need to explain yourself to those determined to misunderstand. You no longer try to force your vision into a world not ready to receive it. Freedom does not begin when the world gives you permission. It begins the moment you release your attachment to how things should unfold. Letting go does not mean abandoning your standards or vision. It means loosening your grip on your need for specific outcomes. In letting go, you do not lose power, you reclaim it. You create space for truth to emerge, stillness, peace, and poise. These qualities do not arrive when everything is perfect, but when you stop needing everything to be. There is a quiet power in the one who does not chase, who does not beg, who can walk away from noise and never look back. They let go not from indifference, but from discipline and wisdom. They do not collapse into every emotion, they study them. They do not fight every battle, they choose them. They do not react, they respond. This is the power we must seek, to become unshaken in chaos, still in the storm, and free in the noise. Not the one who clutches, but the one who releases. For when you finally let go, the world does not fall apart. It finally falls into place. Stop trying to control the storm. Learn to stand in the, you were never meant to control the storm. You were never appointed master of the wind, nor architect of the clouds. Your charge has only ever been this, yourself within the storm, nothing more. But somewhere along the line, maybe from the anxious hands that raised you, or the trembling voices that warned you about the world, you learned differently. You were taught to brace yourself at every whisper of thunder, to resist every unpredictable shift, to tighten your jaw and armor your heart at the first sign of wind. So you did what all of us do at first. You tried to build walls against the rain, holding up trembling hands as if you could command the downpour to stop. You exhausted yourself, patching leaks in a roof that was never yours to fix. And inevitably, you drowned, overwhelmed not by the rain itself, but by your own desperate effort to halt its coming. We all do at first, because resistance feels like strength. You grit your teeth. You try to prepare for every threat, every failure, every disappointment, convinced that to control is to survive, that to resist is to conquer. But storms do not obey the commands of the anxious mind. Chaos does not retreat at the sound of your voice. The wind howls, indifferent to your pleas. The waves rise, unmoved by your demands. So what now? What do you do when you realize that no amount of worry, no scale of planning, no ferocity of will can drive back the storm? You stop fighting the rain, and you learn at last to stand in it. Let it pour, let it sting, let it test the strength of your posture, the depth of your roots, the clarity of your mind. Let the world rain down every challenge it can muster. You remain. You stand still, anchored, unshaken. The storm swirls, but it does not move you. The thunder roars, but it does not enter your chest. That is the paradox. True strength does not come from domination. It is not measured by your ability to subdue the world or silence the chaos. True strength lives in discipline, the kind that refuses to be moved by what does not deserve your collapse. It is not about raising your voice above the wind, but quieting the storms within, so that the world's noise cannot unsettle you. You do not beg the world for calm. You become the calm. You do not demand peace from circumstances. You are peace, even when circumstances fall apart. This is the lesson that takes the longest to learn and the longest to accept. You do not need the sky to be clear for your spirit to be steady. You do not need the rain to stop for your heart to be at rest. And as you master this, something changes. The storm loses its power over you not because it disappears, but because it can no longer reach what is steady inside. You watch the lightning, you feel the rain, but you remain untouched at your core. The world may break open, but you do not break with it. Your sense of self is no longer at the mercy of outside forces. Let the world do what it will. Let the sky darken, the wind howl, the rain pour down. You know who you are now. The rain was never your enemy. Your reaction to it was, now the world is as it is, but you are as you choose to be, rooted, calm, and unbroken. And in that, you find the power the storm could never touch. Control is an illusion. Composure is real. You thought you were in control. You charted out your days in careful order. You built routines step by step, convinced that discipline alone could fence out uncertainty. You made plans detailed, color-coded, sometimes even beautiful. You set expectations and boundaries, stacking them up like concrete walls, brick by cautious brick. You told yourself that with enough order, life would obey. And for a time, it almost seemed to work. Routines held, plans went according to script, and the world spun quietly on the track you had chosen. But life, in its wisdom or its indifference, always has other ideas. Sometimes it reminds you gently, a delayed train, a missed call, a harmless slip in the schedule. Sometimes the reminder is violent, a career lost overnight, a sudden goodbye, news that shatters your sense of tomorrow. And in these moments, you learn a lesson you never wanted to. The world owes you nothing, and the idea of control is a story you told yourself to stave off fear. Control is a mask the fearful wear to keep uncertainty at bay. It's a shield, heavy but brittle, that cracks and splinters with the first real blow. You clutch at it because you are told that to control is to survive. But every day you live, you see how little in this world can truly be mastered. But there is something else, something different: composure. Composure is not the same as control. Composure does not need to know what's coming next. It is not obsessed with outcomes or forecasts. It does not demand certainty before it will step forward. It does not flinch when plans are upended. Composure is something quieter, deeper, a stillness that can weather uncertainty without shattering. Where control is a desperate attempt to dominate the external, composure is a discipline cultivated within. It prepares the mind for uncertainty. It accepts that the world will surprise, disrupt, and disappoint, and it remains unmoved by surprise, disruption, or disappointment. This preparation, this inner posture, is the real form of command you've been searching for all along. Not the command of the world, but command of the self. Let the stock market crash. Let the partner leave. Let the phone call deliver what you feared. Let the perfect plan crumble overnight. If your mind is anchored, truly anchored, deep beneath the waves, then none of these things can own you. They may hurt, they may change the landscape of your life, but they do not break the foundation of who you are. That is the quiet gift of composure. It grants you the ability to move through fire with the same calm face you wear in moments of peace. Not because you feel nothing, but because your emotions serve you, they do not command you. You allow yourself to feel, but you do not allow yourself to be swept away. This is the shift that separates the lost from the sovereign, the move from control to command, from obsession with outcomes to observation of what is, from panic and frantic movement to a quiet, unshakable presence. Control dies with the first disruption. It cannot survive the unpredictable. But composure outlives the storm. It is the quiet within you that the world cannot touch, the steady hand you bring to every chaos, the part of you that endures when all your plans are undone. In the end, it was never about controlling the world. It was about commanding yourself, come what may. That is where real power lives. You can't force peace. You must remove what fights it. It waits for you, always beneath the static, beneath the racing thoughts, beneath the never-ending noise. But all your life, noise is what you've been trained to hear. It's what you're given every day by the world and by your own habits of mind. The ceaseless barrage of opinions, judgments, deadlines, standards. So you come to believe that peace is missing or lost or hiding somewhere outside of you. You chase peace as if it is something you must capture. You try to earn it through achievement by checking every box, conquering every goal, climbing every ladder. When that fails, you try to buy it, numbing yourself with distractions, chasing the next thing that promises to quiet the ache. Sometimes you pretend peace through performance, acting calm, playing the part, hoping no one will notice the storm behind your eyes. But peace does not work like that. Peace is not a prize to be won. It is not gained by addition. Peace is revealed, uncovered, the way sunlight is revealed when clouds pass, the way calm water is seen when the mud settles, and the only way to find it is to subtract. Subtract the comparisons every time you measure your worth against someone else's progress, beauty, or approval. You build a wall between yourself and peace. Subtract the self-criticism, the relentless voice that never grants you rest, always demanding better, faster, more. Subtract the rehearsed regrets, those old stories you play in your mind, as if reliving them could change what has already passed. Subtract the imagined futures, those anxious projections that keep you braced for storms that have not come and may never come. Subtract the obsession with being seen, praised, validated, the need to stand out, to be admired, to prove yourself again and again until you're exhausted and hollow. Peace is not something you add to your life, one more item on your to-do list. It is what remains when you let go of everything else. It is the space that appears when you stop filling every corner of your mind with battles, judgments, and noise. That is why the most peaceful people you meet often seem, at first glance, like they've given up not on life, but on the unnecessary. They have dropped the fake battles, the pointless arguments, the need to be everything for everyone. They have stopped carrying the heavy bags of other people's expectations. They have closed the door, gently but firmly, on the pursuit of perfection. You don't build peace by pushing harder, by hustling more, or by striving to force calm into chaos. You build peace by clearing space, by sweeping away what never belonged, by letting silence settle where there was only noise. So look honestly at your mind. What within you fights your calm? What patterns keep you rehearsing old wounds, replaying old fears? Who in your life stirs up chaos, pulls you off center, leaves you more anxious than at ease? What stories are you telling yourself that keep the war going long after the battle is over? Let them go. Release your grip, little by little, on everything that is not truly yours to hold. And then, be patient. Stand in the quiet. Watch what rises from beneath the noise. That's where you'll find it, not as a treasure won, but as your own birthright, finally revealed when you make space for it to breathe. Peace was never missing. It was only waiting for you to let go. Detachment is not coldness. It is clarity. They'll say you've changed, that you've grown hard, that your silence is an insult, and your boundaries are a wall. They'll whisper that you're selfish for putting yourself first. They'll paint you as the villain for refusing to carry what was never yours. Why? Because you stopped over-explaining. Because you stopped justifying every choice and apologizing for your boundaries. Because when guilt was thrown at your feet, you didn't flinch or pick it up. Because you left the table quietly when the conversation turned to poison, refusing to cause a scene, refusing to plead your case one more time. But what they can't see is this. Detachment is not the absence of feeling. It is the absence of ownership over what isn't yours. You have learned, sometimes painfully, that you can care deeply and still choose distance. That you can wish the best for someone and still walk away when their chaos threatens your calm. You've realized that compassion does not mean codependence, and that love does not mean losing yourself in someone else's storm. You no longer build your identity around who stays, who claps, or who sings your praises. You do not measure your worth by how much you can sacrifice or how much noise you can absorb. This is the rare wisdom you now hold. Not every emotion deserves a reaction. Not every problem is yours to fix. Not every attachment is worth the pain of keeping. You let go not to be numb or indifferent, but to be sane. You can still care, but you won't crumble under the weight of other people's expectations. You can still feel, but you are no longer ruled by passing moods or the storms of others. There's a line now drawn with quiet conviction, and on your side of it, peace lives. Yes, you will lose people this way. Some will walk away when you stop performing for their approval, when you stop bending your boundaries to fit their comfort. But what you lose in company, you gain in clarity. You lose confusion, drama, exhaustion, those old companions of a life lived for everyone but yourself. And in their place, you gain presence. A presence so rare in this world of constant noise. A steadiness that lets you stand in chaos and remain unmoved. Detachment, you have learned, isn't a wall to keep the world out. It's a filter, a way of discerning what deserves your time, energy, and heart, and what simply does not. Once you install this filter, your energy no longer leaks out into every loud voice, every false fire, every demand for attention or apology. The noise of others can no longer reach the quiet core within you. You become clear, focused, unshakable. You move through your days with a calm that no longer needs explanation or permission. You give freely where it matters, but you do not empty yourself to fill others who refuse to fill themselves. You are still open, still kind, still capable of love, but you no longer confuse sacrifice with self-abandonment. This is the cost and the gift of detachment. You lose what never served you, and in that empty space, you discover yourself. You find the place where peace can finally stay. Silence is a response, and often the most powerful one. The world will always have opinions, some sharp as daggers, some careless as passing wind. Insults are flung with the ease of a gesture, criticisms fired off with little thought, misunderstandings born and spread like wildfire. You will be misread, misjudged, misquoted. It's part of living, breathing, daring to be seen. But not every insult requires your defense. Not every attack deserves the gift of your energy. Not every misunderstanding is yours to chase down and untangle. Most of what is thrown at you is a test, a question, not of your strength, but of your discipline. The question is not, can you fight back? But can you remain unmoved? Sometimes the strongest move you can make is no move at all. Silence is not weakness. Silence is restraint. It is the steady hand that refuses to be pulled into someone else's chaos. It is the mind that remains unshaken, the spirit that is unmoved. Silence is not the absence of words, but the presence of mastery. Anyone can speak. Anyone can shout, argue, or defend. Anyone can react impulsively, emotionally, endlessly. That's the easy path, the default response. But to remain still, to hold your ground, to keep your center when provoked, that is a rare and quiet power. Do not mistake the silence of the strong for surrender. The one who stays silent is not always defeated. Sometimes they are simply done. Done explaining to people who do not care to listen. Done proving worth to those who have already made up their minds. Done being baited into meaningless battles, drained by the drama of others. Sometimes you reach a point where silence is not just a tactic, but a declaration. You are done performing, done justifying, done allowing others to access the well of your peace. There is a kind of silence that speaks louder than any defense. It is a silence that draws a line in the sand. It says, you no longer get to pull me into your storm. It says, my peace is mine to protect, not yours to disturb. It says, I know my value, and your approval or lack of it has no bearing on who I am. Let others perform. Let others spin in circles, making noise and demanding your participation. Let them fill the air with words, hoping to provoke a reaction. You stay rooted. You keep your dignity. You hold the line. You know when to speak, and you know when to let silence do the speaking for you. Your stillness is not empty. It is full of self-respect, of quiet confidence, of unshakable poise. Because the one who rules their tongue, who can master their response, who does not allow themselves to be baited or controlled by the whims of others, that one truly rules their life. In the end, your greatest strength is not in how loudly you can shout, but in how firmly you can stand. Not in the energy you spend defending yourself, but in the calm you maintain regardless of what comes at you. The world is noisy, restless, insistent, but you are free the moment you realize that your peace is not for sale and your reaction is yours alone to give. Master your silence, and you master your life. Not everything deserves a reaction. Most things deserve release. Your attention is a currency far more precious than gold, more limited than any coin you'll ever hold in your hand. Each day, without realizing it, you spend this currency. You scatter it across countless distractions, most of them utterly worthless. You scroll through endless comments from strangers you'll never meet, arguing about things you'll forget by next week. You rehearse conversations with people who will barely cross your mind a year from now. You invent problems in your head, letting them spiral and multiply, never noticing that most would vanish if you'd only stop obsessing. You let your peace be stolen by scenarios that never actually unfold, by the constant noise of a world hungry for your reaction. You tell yourself that reacting is a sign of strength, that to answer every critic, to leap at every insult, to stamp out every perceived threat, this is how you prove you are alive, engaged, unbreakable. Silence feels like surrender. Letting go seems like losing. You mistake your agitation for passion, your readiness to pounce for power. But let's be honest for a moment. Reaction is not always a mark of strength. Sometimes it is the clearest proof of slavery. Every time you snap back, every time you are triggered, you are letting someone else dictate your state of mind. You are handing over the keys of your peace to any stranger, any minor inconvenience, any trivial annoyance. Is that power? Is that mastery? No, that is emotional poverty. That is bankruptcy of the mind and spirit. A mind that must respond to every disturbance is a mind chained to the world. It is at the mercy of every gust of wind, every careless word, every shifting shadow. The truly strong do not spend their days in constant battle. They do not race around stamping out every fire. They become the ones who cannot be burned. You do not owe the world your reaction. You do not need to answer every criticism flung your way. You do not need to correct every misperception, or avenge every slight, or defend your name to those determined to misunderstand it. Most things do not deserve your energy, your explanation, your time. You can let them pass through you like wind through the trees. What you truly need is space. Space to breathe when you feel your blood begin to boil. Space to choose your next step rather than leaping from reflex. Space to weigh what actually matters against what is simply noise. Most of what clamors for your attention deserves only your silence. The higher you rise in self-discipline, the less you find yourself responding to the world's provocations. Not because you have become numb, not because you no longer feel, but because you understand that not every feeling must be fed, not every urge must be obeyed. You know that feeling does not require fueling. Let it go. Let the world spin. Let the noise rage. Let the provocations pass unacknowledged. You are not here to chase every fire that flares in front of you. You are here to master yourself so thoroughly that you become fireproof, untouched by the flames that once consumed your peace. This is not apathy. This is sovereignty. This is the quiet strength that cannot be rattled by the world, the dignity that chooses its battles, the wisdom that preserves its own attention for what truly matters. Spend your attention like it is the last currency you'll ever hold. Invest it where it grows. Guard it from thieves. Refuse to give it away to the trivial, the petty, the passing. You are not here to react to everything. You are here to become the one who no longer burns. If it costs your peace, it's too expensive. There are things you've accepted in your life not because they are right, not because they are good for you, but simply because you've grown used to the constant noise. People whose words clutter your mind, habits that steal your mornings, thoughts that gnaw at your confidence, patterns that keep you circling the same tired outcomes. They've become so familiar, so woven into the background of your days that you hardly notice how much they cost you anymore. These things keep you restless. They leave you tired even after a full night's sleep. They make your soul unsettled, never letting you rest fully into yourself. And yet, you justify them. You call it normal. You wear exhaustion like a badge of honor, mistaking survival for strength. You tell yourself that to endure is to be powerful, that everyone has their burdens, that this is simply how life is meant to be. But here's the real test, the question that strips away every excuse and lays the truth bare. Does it give you peace? If the answer is no, then understand this with brutal honesty. It is too expensive. It costs more than you can afford. Anything that robs your stillness without returning wisdom is theft. Anything that drains your energy without offering clarity is not just a bad deal, it is a silent enemy. These things do not simply take your time, they corrode your spirit. They take from you the one thing you can never replace, your peace. And yet you carry them. Day after day, you stay in conversations that leave you hollow, justifying the discomfort in the name of loyalty or politeness. You remain in environments that mock your growth, convincing yourself that you are just being resilient. You engage in thoughts that corrode your self-respect, letting old wounds fester under the pretense of self-examination. Why do we do this? Why do we cling to what hurts us? Because letting go feels like loss. Because the prospect of emptiness is more terrifying than the poison we've learned to tolerate. The unknown frightens us more than the pain we know too well. But let me remind you, emptiness is not death. Emptiness is not failure. Emptiness is space. Space for something better, cleaner, truer. It is a blank page, an invitation for renewal. Only when your hands are empty can you receive what you truly need. Only when you clear the noise can you hear the quiet truth of your own soul. Let go of what costs too much. If a relationship, a habit, a belief demands your peace, if it insists on your suffering as its price, then it is charging more than it is worth. The world may not understand. They may call you cold or distant or ruthless. Let them. They have not learned the value of their own peace. And your peace, never forget, this is not a bargain. It is not something to be traded for approval, for comfort, for fleeting security. It is sacred. It is the very foundation of a life well lived. Guard it like the rarest treasure. Protect it from thieves in the form of obligations, expectations, and memories that no longer serve you. When you honor your peace, you honor your highest self. You create the conditions for wisdom, for clarity, for real strength to grow. And in that space, you will find what you've been seeking all along, not in the noise, but in the quiet after you finally let go. Stop begging for closure. Start building completion. You wanted them to apologize, to admit their fault, to understand the pain they caused, to come back and offer the words that might finally put the past to rest. You wanted them to explain, to untangle the confusion they left behind, to make sense of what never did. So you waited. You checked your phone for messages that never arrived. You replayed every conversation, every word, every look, searching for meaning, for hope, for some sign that they cared as much as you did. You called it patience, a virtue, a strength, proof that you were willing to wait for what was rightfully yours. But beneath that patience was something more insidious, a silent form of self-betrayal. You put your healing on hold, holding your breath for someone else to set you free. You tethered your peace to the choices of another, making your well-being dependent on their actions, their remorse, their ability to give you what they never did. Here is the truth, as stark as it is liberating. The closure you seek will not come from them. It can't. No apology, no explanation, no gesture, no reunion will ever undo what's been done or rewrite the chapters already lived. Waiting for someone else to give you peace is like waiting for the wind to return what it has taken. Completion is not an external event. It is an internal decision, a quiet but powerful moment when you choose, finally, to stop seeking from others what you must create for yourself. You don't need their remorse to move on. You don't need their clarity to begin to understand. You don't need the final chapter they refuse to write. You can write it. You can close the book. You can step off the page and into a new story. Yes, it hurts. Let no one tell you otherwise. There is a pain in realizing that the comfort you waited for may never come, that the answers you hoped for may remain unsaid. But what hurts more, what erodes the soul far deeper, is waiting for peace from someone who cannot even offer it to themselves. Their silence is not an invitation to keep waiting. It is a lesson, urging you to take back the pen and write your own ending. They left holes, empty spaces where love or understanding or honesty should have been. So what? You are not defined by the gaps others leave behind. You fill them. You patch the wounds, not with bitterness, but with understanding first of them and then of yourself. You fill those empty spaces with wisdom, with compassion, with a level of strength that, looking back, you realize never depended on them in the first place. Closure is not about them. It never was. It is about you. It is about making the courageous decision that your healing no longer depends on their participation, that your future no longer bends to the shape of their absence. This is the day you stop giving power to the people who couldn't offer you peace. This is the day you choose yourself not because they were unworthy, but because you are finally ready to stop waiting. You stop rereading the same painful page, searching for an ending that isn't there. You close the book with a steady hand. And with that choice, the story finally ends. Not because you received what you wanted from them, but because you gave yourself what you needed all along. The less you need, the freer you become. Desire is a hidden chain. You cannot always see it, but you feel its weight in every restless hour, every longing gaze, every goal that refuses to let you sleep. It wears clever disguises, sometimes the mask of ambition, sometimes the warm face of love, sometimes the soft comfort of routine. You convince yourself that to desire is to live, that without hunger there is no progress, that without craving there is no purpose. But quietly, beneath all your explanations, desire rules you. It pulls you forward, sometimes into places you never meant to go. You chase without rest, telling yourself that the next achievement, the next word of approval, the next comfort will finally complete the unfinished parts of your soul. You obsess over outcomes, imagining happiness in every what if, staking your peace on the approval of others, believing that fulfillment lies just beyond the horizon of what you currently possess. But here's a secret most will never learn. The freer life is not found in adding more. It is found in subtracting. Freedom is not in the relentless accumulation of things, titles, relationships, or moments of applause. It is in learning to let go. Need less, expect less, depend less. With every unnecessary weight you drop, with every attachment you loosen, you taste something rare in this world, something most will spend a lifetime seeking but never find. Freedom. The one who needs little is not easily controlled. Their peace is not held hostage by other people's moods or the unpredictable changes of the world. They are not broken by silence or loneliness. They are not manipulated by praise, nor do they become desperate in its absence. They are not enslaved by the constant fear of loss, because they have learned that nothing essential can truly be taken from them. They move light. Their step is unburdened by the endless need to be noticed, to be right, to always have more. They sleep well because there are fewer anxieties gnawing at them in the dark. They live with a quiet power, a strength that is invisible to the noisy and the needy. You will rarely see them beg, rarely see them panic, rarely see them thrown off balance by the chaos of the world. This is not the death of ambition. Do not mistake this for surrender or stagnation. It is the resurrection of command, the return of your power to where it belongs, within you. When you need less from the world, when you release the compulsion to collect and to cling, you are no longer its hostage. You stop begging reality to be different. You stop making your self-worth a prisoner of circumstances, possessions, or the ever-shifting opinions of others. Instead, you begin to measure your life by a different standard, not by what you acquire, but by what you can walk away from. You find your real power, not in holding on, but in your willingness to let go. You see that mastery is not proven by how much you can accumulate, but by how lightly you can move, how calmly you can stand in the face of change, how gracefully you can leave behind what no longer serves your peace. And when you reach the place where you can walk away from everything, where nothing owns you, nothing binds you, nothing makes you desperate, you gain access to anything. Because only then do you truly own yourself. This is freedom, the rarest prize of all, not in adding but in subtracting, not in needing but in letting go. You don't rise by force, you rise by release. Everyone told you to fight, to push harder when you felt tired, to grind through your pain, to dominate every obstacle, to clench your jaw and clench your fists and never, ever let go. The world celebrates the relentless, glorifies the unyielding. They hand out medals to those who never stop struggling, who drag their burdens over the finish line, no matter the cost. But they never told you the other side of power, the side that isn't about gripping tighter, but about learning when to loosen your hold. They never told you that real strength sometimes looks like surrender, that real growth is found not in the piling on, but in the letting go. You don't rise by adding more weight to your shoulders. You rise by dropping what was never yours to carry in the first place. You ascend not by accumulating scars, but by releasing the old stories that keep you anchored to the ground. The stories you tell yourself about what you are and what you are not, the toxic ties that keep you connected to pain, to people, to places you have outgrown. The false identities you've constructed for survival, the masks, the roles, the defensive armor you once needed but no longer fits. The wounds you refuse to forgive, the slights you replay in your mind until they harden into bitterness. All of these are anchors, and here you are, staring at the sky, dreaming of flight, wondering why your feet will not leave the ground. What would happen if you dropped them? Who would you be without that bitterness you've polished and protected, without the constant need to prove your worth to others who cannot see it? Who would you become if you stopped identifying with every wound, every old label, every memory of how things were? If you let go of the story that you are only as strong as your struggle, only as worthy as your suffering, you do not have to carry what broke you. The pain, the shame, the heavy inheritance of old regrets, none of it is required for the journey ahead. You are allowed to set it down. You are allowed to stop returning to the past for meaning, to stop revisiting the same hurtful chapters, hoping they'll end differently. You don't owe loyalty to the version of yourself that only knew how to survive. You can thank that version for getting you this far, for its grit and its resourcefulness, but you do not have to let it dictate your future. You can become the one who thrives, who lives beyond the patterns of old wounds, who chooses a lighter, freer way. But to do that, you must unhook yourself. Unhook from who you were, from what you've clung to out of fear or habit or a misplaced sense of duty. Unhook from the drama that once gave your pain a purpose, from the chaos that once made you feel alive. You do not need to keep recreating the same storms just to prove that you can survive them. Freedom is not found in the clutching, in the repeating, in the endless rehearsal of pain. Freedom is on the other side of release. It is in the quiet exhale after you drop the anchor, in the weightlessness you feel when you finally decide to let go. Drop it. All of it, the old stories, the old pain, the identities you've outgrown. Let it fall away and watch what happens next. Rise. There is nothing holding you back but what you refuse to set down. The sky has been waiting for you all along. You are not obligated to remain who you were. People remember your past. Even when you've outgrown it, even when it no longer fits the person you're becoming, others hold on to it with both hands. They keep the memory of your mistakes and old habits close, sometimes as a quiet warning, sometimes as an excuse to keep you exactly where they want you. They don't say it outright, but every time you reach for something higher, every time you stretch beyond what you were, they wrap your history around your neck like a chain, gentle enough to hide, heavy enough to feel. You've changed, they'll say. As if that's a crime. As if transformation is a betrayal and growth is an insult. But what they really mean is this. You're no longer who I can control. You're no longer playing the role I'm comfortable with. You're no longer predictable, and that unsettles me. You are not required to play the same role for the comfort of others, not for their ease, not for the sake of tradition, or the heavy hand of family expectations, or the subtle guilt they place on your shoulders. You are not here to carry the weight of someone else's nostalgia for a version of you that no longer exists. Growth is not betrayal. It is responsibility. It is the ultimate act of self-respect. You owe it to your future not to wear the skin of your former self, not to keep reciting the same lines in the script others wrote for you. Your peace is worth more than the temporary discomfort of those around you. Your life is too valuable to waste performing an old identity just to avoid their whispers, their doubts, their sideways glances. You do not need to explain your evolution. You do not owe a thesis on why you are no longer content with yesterday's limits. You do not need to apologize for outgrowing the spaces, people, and patterns that once defined you. You only need to embody your growth, quietly and fully, letting your actions speak louder than any justification ever could. Let them be confused, let them whisper to each other, mourning the loss of who you used to be. Let them spin their stories about why you've changed. That person, the one they miss or mourn or even resent, served a purpose. That version of you was necessary for a season, for a struggle, for a lesson. But their time is done. Their chapter is over. There is no shame in becoming someone new. There is only shame in knowing you could rise, in feeling the pull of your own potential, and choosing to stay low out of fear, fear of judgment, fear of abandonment, fear of making others uncomfortable. The world will try to convince you that comfort is the goal, that safety is found in sameness, that your highest duty is to keep others content by staying the same. But your true duty is to your own becoming, to the light you are meant to grow into. Remember, every tree outgrows the small pot it was planted in. Every bird leaves the nest not to spite its home, but to honor its wings. You are not betraying anyone by rising. You are honoring what is possible within you. So, let them remember your past. Let them try to keep you in the old story. You know the truth. You are here to evolve. There is nothing to explain. There is only the next chapter, and it is yours to write. The strongest person is not the one who wins, but the one who walks away. They think walking away is weakness. That turning your back, closing the door, or refusing to stay in the fight means you didn't try hard enough. That you lacked endurance, or courage, or conviction. They tell themselves you gave up, that you broke down, that you folded when things got hard. Let them think it. Let them comfort themselves with their shallow judgments, because what they don't see, the reality hidden behind your silence, is the war you chose not to fight. The dignity you chose to protect, quietly and without fanfare. The energy you decided to preserve for battles worthy of your spirit. The peace you reclaimed for yourself, choosing it over pride, over chaos, over the endless tug of war with people who will never see you clearly. Strength is not always loud. It does not always arrive in the form of a raised voice or a clenched fist. It does not always stand tall in the center of the storm, daring the world to break it. Sometimes, true strength is so quiet it is mistaken for weakness. Sometimes, it looks like silence, like a door softly closed, like your absence from a room that once held all your attention. Like the empty chair at a table where your presence once anchored the conversation. Walking away is not quitting, it is mastery. It is the hard-won discipline of knowing the difference between perseverance and self-destruction, between fighting for what matters and wasting yourself on what never will. It is an act of sovereignty the moment you claim your right to decide where your energy goes, who gets your time, what battles are worthy of your soul. Walking away says, I know the cost of staying. I know the price of betraying myself for the sake of appearances. I know what it takes to leave, and I am willing to pay it for the sake of my own peace. It says, I know the value of leaving. I understand that absence is sometimes the greatest gift you can give to your future, to your healing, to your growth. And once you know that deep in your bones, beyond the reach of other people's opinions, you are free. You stop seeking revenge, realizing that your absence is all the response that is needed. You stop begging to be understood, accepting that not everyone is capable of seeing you as you truly are. You stop proving your worth to those who are blind to it, letting your life speak for itself. You walk, you do not look back, because there is nothing behind you worth returning for. You let go of the need to explain, to justify, to convince others of your truth. You trust that your silence is enough, that your absence is its own message. And slowly, the world adjusts around your absence. The noise fades. The drama dissolves. The people who needed your chaos to feel alive find new stories to tell. You discover that peace is not something given, but something claimed, sometimes in the quietest, most resolute step you will ever take. Walking away is not failure. It is not surrender. It is the art of honoring yourself enough to leave behind what does not serve you. It is the quiet triumph of choosing yourself again and again until the only thing left is your own unshakable peace. You are allowed to outgrow what once felt like home. There are seasons of your life that once gave you comfort. Times when the world felt gentle and you felt at home in a place, in a community, in the arms of people who seemed to understand you. These seasons wrapped themselves around your shoulders like a warm blanket. They offered you belonging, family, purpose. You called them home, and they were at least for a while. But not anymore. With time, what once felt spacious now feels tight. What once felt nourishing now sits heavy in your chest, a reminder that you have changed, and the world you once loved has not changed with you. The air grows thinner. The rooms shrink. The words and rituals that once fed you now leave you restless and hungry for something more, something different. The places that used to shelter you now seem foreign, almost unrecognizable, as if you are a guest in your own life. And yet, you stay. You hold your breath and shrink yourself to fit the old patterns because they are familiar and there is comfort in the known. You convince yourself that leaving is betrayal, that to outgrow is to reject. You carry a quiet guilt for even daring to want more, guilt for dreaming of horizons beyond what once felt like everything you'd ever need. But comfort is not always truth. Home is not always healthy. Just because something once held you does not mean it should hold you forever. Some roots were meant to be outgrown. Some shelters become cages when you no longer fit inside. You are allowed to evolve. In fact, you are meant to. It is not disrespectful to look at what once nurtured you and say with gentle honesty, "I've changed, and this no longer fits." Growth requires honesty, not only with the world, but with yourself. To admit that what once felt like life is now only habit. To see that what once sustained you now keeps you small. This is not ingratitude. It is not disloyalty. It is the natural consequence of becoming. To thank your past for its gifts without sacrificing your future for its comfort. To honor the people and places that made you, but not mistake that honor for a lifelong sentence. Gratitude and growth can exist in the same breath. And growth, by nature, is uncomfortable. It asks you to stretch beyond what is safe, to loosen your grip on what is easy, to risk disappointing those who wanted you to remain as you were. There will be rooms you must exit, no matter how many memories linger there. Conversations you must stop having, no matter how long they once sustained you. Dreams you must shed, not because they were wrong, but because you have outgrown their promise. You are not abandoning the past. You are not turning your back on what was beautiful or true or necessary for you in another season. You are returning to yourself deeper, wider, truer than before. You are making space for the next chapter of your life, even if that means stepping into the unfamiliar, even if it means walking alone for a while. That is what outgrowing feels like. Unfamiliar, unapologetic, necessary. It is not a failure. It is a declaration that you are alive, that you are changing, that you refuse to let comfort keep you from becoming all that you were meant to be. Let yourself move on. That is not abandonment, it is evolution. When you let go, the world comes to you. You've chased everything you were told would complete you. Peace, the kind that settles the storm inside, that quiets the mind at night and lets you rest easy in your own skin. Love, the elusive promise of being fully seen, fully wanted, fully held. Validation, That momentary lift when someone else's words tell you that you matter, that you're enough. Success, the shiny finish line that always seemed just a few more steps ahead, never quite within reach. You ran after these things with everything you had. You wore out your shoes, your hope, your heart. You ran until your lungs bled, believing that if you just moved faster, tried harder, you could finally close the gap between you and the life you dreamed of. But the more you chased, the further it drifted, always a shadow out of reach, always slipping through your hands just as you arrived. And then, somewhere along the journey, something inside you went still. It wasn't exhaustion that stilled you, not the bone-tired kind that collapses at the end of a race. It was awakening. The quiet realization that chasing does not equal finding, that grasping does not equal having, that the search for fulfillment outside of yourself is a race with no finish line. So you stop chasing. You stop running from the emptiness, from the fear, from the lie that your worth is somewhere out there. Instead, you receive, not by grabbing, not by forcing, but by becoming. By transforming yourself into the kind of person who can hold what you seek, by cultivating inner space for what truly matters to land and take root. You clean the clutter from your mind, from your life, from your heart. You sever the noise, the endless commentary, the expectations, the distractions that drown out your true frequency. You make space, not just physically, but energetically. You learn to sit with yourself, to welcome the silence, to be whole without needing to be filled. And in that space, things begin to arrive. People who match your frequency, not because you chase them, but because you radiate a signal that draws them in. Opportunities that respect your peace, not the ones that demand your soul as the price of admission, but the ones that align with who you are becoming. Moments that feel like alignment instead of effort, as if, finally, the world is no longer an obstacle, but a dance. Because the world responds to posture, not panic. It senses the one who is whole, who is grounded, who walks with a quiet certainty rather than desperate noise. It recognizes the one who does not need, but chooses, the one who knows their own value, who invites rather than demands, who welcomes rather than pleads. This is the great reversal. The wisdom that comes only after you've exhausted yourself with striving, only after you've tried every way except letting go. When you finally release, not from defeat, but from understanding, everything begins to fall into place. Not all at once, not in a dramatic rush, but one quiet piece at a time, like sunrise, like spring, like healing. And when it happens, when the right people, the right moments, the right opportunities appear, you'll see the truth at last. You didn't lose anything by letting go. You gained yourself, and in gaining yourself,